Hey, what's going on, guys? I just came across a video. It's by a guy called Bring Halo Back, I believe his name is. I haven't watched his content regularly. I just sort of stumbled upon this channel recently, but I have watched a few of his videos, and the way I was introduced to him was through this video. It's about the great aim assist debate in Halo. I'm a big fan of Halo, although admittedly I am somewhat casual. I am not a pro. I don't claim to have made level 50 in the past like he has. Um, I have played all of the Halos on their release platforms. I've even played the Halo PC versions in their original releases, Halo 2 Vista and Halo CE back in 2003 on PC. So I have experience with Halo. I'm by no means a pro player, and I don't even claim myself to be that good. Like I'm very average, and I play casually. I'm getting older. There are reasons why I don't play as much, or that I'm not as good. But just for the sake of argument, let's just say that I'm an average player. I'm not incredibly weak, but I'm not incredibly strong. I'm probably smack dab in the middle of uh, what you would consider to be a skilled Halo player. So, that being said, we're going to take a look at this video and discuss the ongoing debate on aim assist. Largely, the reason I stumbled upon this channel is because I was looking for information regarding the solution of input-based matchmaking, something I'm highly anticipating. I'm super hyped for it. I can't wait. Um, I think it's going to be a great solution, even if it splits the player base in half virtually, or it might not even be in half. It might favor controller or it might favor mouse and keyboard. Hopefully, they're able to introduce this update alongside crossplay so it doesn't hurt either side of the community too bad. But input-based matchmaking would be a dream. And largely, the reason I bought Halo MCC on PC was because it would be a mouse and keyboard solution to for Halo. I've always that's been the dream. I've always wanted to play Halo with a mouse and keyboard, um, and my hope was that Halo MCC on PC would be that. It would be the dream. But it hasn't quite worked out that way. It feels good on PC currently. At its release, it was in betas. It was a little bit wonky, but they, pretty much got it all figured out, and it feels good on PC. When you, as a mouse and keyboard player, are playing against other mouse and keyboard, it feels great. It's a lot of fun, and it's a reasonable way to play. I mean, the game has issues. It always has since launch. It was it was torn apart. I bought Halo MCC on Xbox One day one. Actually, bought my Xbox One the day Halo MCC came out. And let's see. Oop, yeah. So this I bought this the day it came out. It even has the Halo 5 beta thingy down there. I don't know if the current copies, if you buy them now, would have that. Um, and I also own Halo 5, just for the record. I may be referring to that game, as context for the debate with the aim assist issues in this video. But anyway, I guess it's probably time for me to get going with the response. So let's go ahead and see what his take is on um, the level of aim assist in Halo and whether or not it should stay, go, or be changed or what.
Really? Are we really going to do this with every Halo game that releases on PC? People are back at it again.
Yeah, so if it continues to be a problem, we will continue to discuss it. Each Halo game plays slightly differently in terms of the precision weapons, especially. And that's sort of been the primary area of debate is precision 1v1 duels, battle rifles, DMRs, carbines, and whatnot, stuff like that. Snipers have been less of a problem. Um, I think PC players are generally happy with the way snipers play out on, their preferred input. Even with aim assist on the controller, snipers are pretty much in a good spot. Um, they get aim assist, and you know we get the ability to no scope. It sort of balances itself out, so that's fine. But yeah, it's history has shown that when you complain loud and cry loud about an issue, it's quicker to get fixed, or usually they eventually do get fixed when you continue to make a fuss. It sucks that it has to be that way because sometimes devs don't they don't know better. They don't know what the problems are unless people continuously complain. Like they themselves are. It's sort of like proofreading your own document. Like you're blind to some of your own mistakes. It's always good to get a fresh pair of eyes on your game or your document, whatever it may be, because you're sort of blind to some of your own development issues and some of the imbalances that you put in the game, knowingly or unknowingly. So if this continues to be a problem, then we'll continue to bitch about it each time a new game comes out. I'm hoping that input-based matchmaking comes with Halo 3. I'm not sure that it will, but we will see.
Blaming the good old aim assist. Controller is OP. Aim assist is an aimbot. It aims for you. I've already made 2 videos in the past about aim assist, mouse and keyboard versus controller when it comes to Halo. And I'll link them in the description of this video, but I'm making a 3rd one. This is the trilogy. This idea that controllers have this drastic advantage over mouse and keyboard is absurd. And in this video, I'm just talking about Halo. Mouse and keyboard versus controller in Halo. A lot of what I'm saying could apply to other games as well, but I'm just focusing on Halo in this.
Largely, they don't affect many other games because currently in the gaming landscape, most of the games played on PC are sort of snap shoot, like low time to kill, aim down sight style games. Whenever you introduce aim down sights into a game and implement what's it called, aim assist in that way, it functions a little bit differently than a hipfire based game like Halo. Furthermore, Halo is sort of a throwback style of shooter from back in the arena shooter days like Unreal Tournament or Quake, and I may bring those up in as examples. If you don't have a frame of reference for what those games are like, I'm sorry, but I think they compare more favorably to Halo than something like, Rainbow Six or COD or Counter Strike. I'm not sure that using those in examples, for this argument, one way or the other, is beneficial. So, yeah, let's just move on.
Video. I've said this before, and I'm gonna say it again. There's some people who love to acknowledge the existence of aim assist on a controller, but they disregard everything else. They are so simple-minded. And I've said this before. I've said a lot of this before, but it's still relevant now because people are still blaming aim assist for why they suck dick at the game.
Okay, so that's an interesting point. No matter what, in video games, you're always going to get those people that blame something or another when they lose. They don't want to accept their responsibility for any of their losses or deaths or mistakes in games. They'll always blame something else. Like a common thing is lag. And then you'll even get things so ridiculous like, oh, my dog was barking, or somebody tapped my fucking shoulder while I was playing and that screwed me up, or I was live streaming, or whatever. Like you're always going to get those people that make excuses for why they performed poorly, but you're also going to get people like in this exact situation with Halo MCC that don't necessarily blame, aren't talking about their lack of skill. Like I don't mind at all when I get killed by somebody that has a power weapon or an advantageous position or something like that. Like they maneuvered the map better than me. They knew something that I don't. Like I said, I'm casually. Some people can integrate certain knowledge about the game into their gameplay so seamlessly that they will attempt things that I would never even attempt. You know what I mean? Like throwing, like for example, throwing a plasma grenade from a fair distance as a means to kill somebody is only viable if you make it viable. Like there are certain throws and sticks I would not even attempt because I don't want the animation. It's a waste of the time of the animation for me to do it when I don't feel like I can, consistently get that. If that makes any sense. I know I'm kind of rambling here, but like things like that, they're only viable if you make them viable. Um, what we're mostly talking about here, the more rational minds, is specific situations. Like, we don't mind getting outplayed. I get outplayed all the time. I've gotten outplayed by mouse and keyboard players. Like, lately, I've been trying to ask players very kindly and not, not insulting them or propping them up or, talking shit or being adversarial, but I, will try to ask them very kindly and take a beat on what input device people are playing on. I think it's important information to have if are looking to compete in certain situations. If you see a player's tag and he's admittedly a controller player, I feel I have to go about that differently. There are certain situations that I just will have to not challenge him on, or I can only challenge him when I'm very, very in the advantage, like not a one-shot advantage. Like I feel like I can only sometimes viably challenge these guys that are halfway decent on controller in very specific situations. And it's specific situations that we're talking about here. We're talking about close to mid-range. Precision duels, 1v1s, and stuff like that. I know there's a lot of moving parts in Halo, so oftentimes it can't always be, you know, reduced to precision 1v1s, but in cases where that happens, it definitely feels like mouse is at a disadvantage versus controller because of the mouse's necessity to sort of predict movement in those close range battles. And it's very tricky. Like we don't have any helping hand guiding our aim in those situations, in those fast-paced, fast-moving situations, where they can kind of controller players can kind of train their crosshair on your head, and no matter how much you strafe left to right, um, for the most part, any semi-experienced controller player in Halo will be able to sort of maintain that lock on your head. When somebody strafes left to right in close to medium range against a mouse and keyboard player, the mouse player will have to be somewhat predictive in how that player, moves. So if he changes directions, we have to change direction. Whereas the mouse or controller player can kind of just let the aim assist glide back, back and forth based on the direction that their opponent strafes.
A lot of these people who feel controllers have this extreme advantage over mouse and keyboard, they fail to acknowledge the fact that on a controller, you're not even getting aim assist at all times. At longer distances, you don't get any aim assist. When you're out of red reticle range, you get less aim assist. They fail to acknowledge the fact that mouse and keyboard players have so many more buttons to work with that they can remap however they choose.
So mouse and keyboard and controller will always be different. They're never going to be a one-to-one. You're never going to perfectly balance the two input methods. And there are certain situations where mouse and keyboard has its advantages, but the argument here is that Halo takes place in engagements that are largely to the controller's advantage. The maps are mostly designed around that in the more competitive modes and the smaller maps. And since everyone now plays largely with precision-based weapons, most situations are of benefit to controller. So discussing the range at which mouse and keyboard has an advantage doesn't really have any ground to me. Because those situations in the more competitive base modes are few and far between. Usually, can always find a way to get their aim assist to kick in.
They fail to acknowledge that on mouse and keyboard, you're aiming with your entire hand, and on a controller, you're aiming with your thumb and a stick. Like, see this? People don't get this. They don't understand this. They have a really hard time. They think this is equal to this. I don't know. I don't know what's going through their heads. I guess their comprehension skills are lacking or something. I mean, like, we see, you see?
All right, at this point, you tend to notice he starts to get a little bit of smug and a little bit condescending. And obviously, anyone with a brain knows that this and this, are not equal. And many first-person shooters put in aim assist to compensate for the inequality of that. It's just the degree to which Halo assists you. I just don't see how it's debatable that Halo assists you to such a large degree using this. Like, the extent to which you get the assistance is almost insane. Now, we may address Halo 5 and how they toned down that assistance because it was a game originally designed around 60 frames per second. The aim assist was actually somewhat toned down. I don't know to what percentage or so it was toned down. My guess would be somewhere between 15 to 30-ish% toned down in Halo 5. And I think that game's shooting might be my favorite of the series because it doesn't have just the ridiculous sticky aim. Like, I feel like there's a more skilled component, or skillful component, or skill gap to the aiming in the game. And I always like that. Some people don't, I guess. Some controller players really favored just having it to where it's all about, positioning, map knowledge, predictive movement, getting inside your opponent's head, knowledge of power weapons, knowledge of tricks and maneuvers in the map, or whatever. Some people just like Halo to take place mostly on that basis, and they don't really want aim to be much of a factor in the game. Whereas people like me, many mouse and keyboard players, want there to be an aim skill gap, and we want that to be as wide as it needs to be. Or possibly as wide as it could be. We don't want any form of assistance with aim in the game, really. We want aim to be a big factor. I know that there's a lot of purists that may not like that or disagree with it, but even 343 themselves, when releasing Halo 5, sort of agreed that at 60 frames per second with the modern control scheme, the current level of aim assist just is not right. It's just not fun. That you can just train your crosshair in somebody's head and just hold it there. Pretty much no matter what in a lot of cases. The only way they can really viably avoid shots is to find cover or something like that. So 343 themselves actually somewhat agrees, because even in their own game, they felt it was kind of shitty. So take that for what it is.
Thumb, hand. Damn near everything is easier to do with your fucking hand than your thumb. You're aiming with your entire hand, you have more control. They fail to acknowledge the fact that you can spin around so much faster with a mouse. Faster than you can using the max sensitivity on a controller. And most people don't even play max sensitivity on a controller. And you know why a lot of people don't max out their sensitivity on a controller? Because it's a lot harder to control your aim with the thumb and the stick than it is with your entire hand.
So his argument here is somewhat logical, and I won't disagree, but it is the reason why I am strongly in favor of input-based matchmaking. If you want to keep Halo the way it is, we need input-based matchmaking. I don't want to play with controller players in my mouse and keyboard Halo game. Like I said, I spent the $40 on the Master Chief Collection simply because it would be a mouse and keyboard solution. Things like FOV, enhanced graphics, and stuff like that were an afterthought and small potatoes, considering I already owned a copy of the game. Like, those are nice, but they're not going to sell me necessarily on another version of the game, another port of the game. It was the mouse and keyboard. Um, it was the ability that to use mouse and keyboard and the fact that they built it from the ground up for mouse and keyboard that really enticed me to purchase it on PC. And now I feel like because controller, has this strong aim assist well beyond what it should be. It's sort of I don't know what the word is, but it puts mouse and keyboard in sort of a weird territory. Like it just sort of nullifies your ability to play with that adequately. Like it just sucks. Like it just sucks. And it's so sad. And I was so excited for this game. And now I'm realizing that I have to play it the way that I was on Xbox. So like my $40 are basically wasted unless, FOV is that big of a deal for me. Um, and the Xbox version has access to more games currently too. And it has the benefit of knowing that everyone's on virtually the same input device. Obviously, you could get an Elite controller. You could try to hook up a mouse and keyboard and play it that way by emulating a controller, but more on that because it sucks. I may go into that later, I may not, but like trying to emulate a controller with mouse and keyboard, it doesn't work. It will be a nice demonstration of the level of aim assist in the games because it is fucking ridiculous because I tried it out in campaign for a short while just to see what it was like. But I never took it in a multiplayer because it just doesn't work. You can't slap aim assist on mouse and keyboard. It just won't work. It feels like shit. And then, not to mention, you're also emulating the right stick with a mouse when you do this method. And it sucks. It doesn't feel good. It doesn't feel like your normal mouse movement. It feels like you're emulating a fucking stick, and it's not good. And then when the aim assist kicks in, it totally screws up your muscle memory because if you need to move off a target, you like struggle to like move off that target. You're like, fuck, motherfucker, get me off of this guy. Like, I need to focus on a higher priority target now, So it just doesn't work. It'll totally screw you up. And for those that want some sort of aim assist in uh, PC Halo, just on mouse and keyboard, just know that it just not it's not going to happen, and it's not what you want. It's not what you think it would be. Okay.
Now, I do agree, and many people agree, that the aim assist in a game like H2A, which just came to PC recently, is way too strong. The bullet magnetism in that game is way too strong. Same thing with Halo 4. The aim assist in the bullet mag, way too strong. In Halo Reach, it was kind of up in the air. I said it might be a little too strong, but I feel it's fine. But the point is, I agree that in some of these Halo games, the aim assist is too strong, and I would like to see it reduced in some of these games.
Okay, that's a totally rational and fair argument. Although he mentions Halo Reach and him being not sure about that. It's too strong in Halo Reach as well. Halo Reach was an Xbox 360 title. It was designed at 60 frames, and if I remember correctly, it wasn't originally designed with the modern control scheme that you have the option of using in Halo MCC. What you're seeing now is they carried over the same values of aim assist from the original titles to MCC, but MCC added so many other features for controller players and so many benefits, natural benefits of playing the game on more powerful hardware that like it compounded that advantage to such a ridiculous extent. So saying that it needs to be toned down is not only, an opinion, it's not just like a take. It's just like sort of a fact. Like it's broken. It's so good it's broken right now. Um, the games weren't originally designed to be played on this hardware with these controls. Like 343 already altered the way the games are played, you know? So for them to be so dead set on keeping aim assist values the way they are just almost doesn't make sense because they already fucked with the way the games feel. The modern control scheme on its own is enough to do that. And then you throw high frame rates on top of that. There's 60 frames on the Xbox version, but God knows what you're playing it on the PC version. Me personally, it would be 144 hertz. You know, 144 frames on my display on my PC monitor, 60 frames if I went on to TV. But like these things already change the way the game is fucking played. So to stand your ground on the aim assist thing, it just doesn't make sense. If you tweak these things, why not tweak these things in response to that? Like I don't like what he's saying is true. Like it's not a feeling that things need to be toned down. They do. They do need to be toned down. Although that I am not favoring that solution. I am more of an advocate of segregation of the input devices. I just don't want any controller aim assist players in my Halo. I bought Halo on PC for a very specific reason, and I think the ideal world is just to segregate the players and introduce crossplay so that um, controller users on PC don't end up with this really small niche community of players playing together. It opens them up to the Xbox players as well. I think that would be really awesome for them. And hopefully, when they introduce input based matchmaking, a lot of the mouse and keyboard players that quit come back because we're now on an even playing field. There's no assistance, or you don't have to worry about some players having some sort of assistance to some insane degree when you play against them. So, anyway, let's move forward.
Shit, I take it a step further and say the bullet magnetism is too much as well. That should be reduced as well. But my main point that I want to get across, if you take anything from this video, let it be this, is that there is so many mouse and keyboard players out there who just aren't that good at Halo, but they blame aim assist. They blame aim assist. Oh, I'm only doing bad because those players are using controller with their aim assist. They're controllers that aim for them. But in reality, these mouse and keyboard players just aren't good at the game. Not all of them. Not all of them. Not all. Some. Not all. And you really can't deny that. Because I've seen it time and time again. You see these mouse and keyboard players that haven't played much Halo in their time, or they haven't played it in years. And you're watching them, and they're making these brain dead plays, these awful plays, and blaming aim assist the whole time. And then
this whole piece is so irrelevant to the argument. I don't even. It's almost dumbfounding that he even brings this up. We're not complaining about dying in the game or getting owned by controller players. We're complaining about getting dominated or owned by controller players in specific situations. It's these specific situations where it's so obvious that like we just cannot keep up. I mean, you would have to be a perfect robot of a player to keep up in these specific situations. To have perfect aim and perfect tracking in an arena-based game like this, like on mouse and keyboard, you'd be pro levels of good. Like, imagine a Quake player that just could railgun players 1v1 like with 80 to 90% accuracy, if not 100. Like, God, that guy would be a god. He would be a fucking god. But that's just not the way it works on mouse and keyboard. We're upset about specific situations. And these specific situations just happen to tend to come up in Halo a lot. Many of the 1v1s are this exact situation that we have an issue with, that we take issue with. I don't have any problem with getting owned by a better player. Like, I've gotten dominated as well as dominated because obviously they were more skilled or I was more skilled. But it's specific situations that definitely favor controller, and you can sort of tell if your opponent is playing on controller based on how they perform in these specific situations. Because, like I said, mouse and keyboard has to be very predictive. So, thus, they're going to miss a shot or two in a lot of these situations. Um, Whereas the controller players, they often don't. Um, so, yeah, we're not complaining about our lack of skill or brain dead plays. We're just complaining about specific situations where the controllers just have great aim and a tremendous amount of assistance with their aim.
You got people like XQC. Here's a video that I'm showing right now from Clutchy, who compiled several different clips from one of XQC's streams where he played Halo 2 on PC. And during this stream, he wasn't doing too well. He was playing pretty badly, but he kept blaming it on aim assist. He kept saying, these controllers with their aim assist, it's the aim assist, it aims for you. Those obviously weren't the exact things he said, but it was along those lines. So what does XQC do? He gets a controller, he plugs it in, and now his aim's arguably worse. He had terrible aim using the device that aims for you.
Okay, that's interesting because what about all the players in, videos or comment sections that do pick up the controller and have played with Halo with controllers in the past, obviously. You can't have never touched a controller or have never played Halo with a controller in your life and expect just to hit every shot. I mean, it does take some innate ability with a controller. Like, I'm not dismissing all of the skill from controller players. They just have a really strong helping hand right now. But you can't dismiss all of the players that say, I'm missing, one or two shots, maybe three in precision gunfights at close to medium range, and like that's just enough to just lose almost all of those against a controller player. And then those players pick up a controller and realize suddenly they're competing. They're good again. And that's happened to me. It's almost gotten to the point where in certain maps, it's like, do I want to use a controller on this map? Or when I get a certain weapon, I'll switch over to the mouse and then switch back over to the controller based on, the weapon or situation that I'm in. Like, it's almost gotten to that point where it's like you have to pick and choose, your input device based on the situation and that you're put in. Because controller just provides that much of a helping hand. Now this, example is interesting. You brought up one example, but there are so many others examples of people, even in your own comment sections I saw, that have evidence to the contrary, where they do in fact pick up a controller and suddenly are able to compete in the same situations they were struggling with on a mouse.
The aimbot couldn't aim for shit using the aimbot. Weird. Wow. That's weird, ain't it? That's real strange. It's almost as if, and just hear me out. It's almost as if the reason he was playing poorly wasn't because he was on mouse and keyboard, but was instead because he wasn't that good at the game. I know it's crazy. But just think about it. And he's just one guy. That's just one stream. But I've seen it so many times. And people need to recognize that there are people like that.
I mean, you say you've seen it so many times. Maybe that's true. You only brought up one example. I'm not coming with any examples because I don't intend to edit this video or anything like that. And I'm just gonna, wing it and slap it on YouTube. So I'm not coming with any examples, but there are also many examples to the contrary. I don't know how many examples you're referring to, but the comment boards on the Halo forums and in comment sections are littered with people that say, dude, once I plug in a controller, like, I'm suddenly able to compete in these situations that I have a problem with on a mouse. So anyway.
There are people who are terrible at the game, but love to blame it on the fact that they're using mouse and keyboard going up against people using a controller with aim assist. And you remember back when Halo Reach came to PC? And Summit was streaming it every day. He was streaming it a lot, crying about aim assist a lot, and everybody rallied behind Summit. Oh yeah, the controller is OP. The controller's an aimbot. Summit was blaming his poor performance in a lot of these matches on the fact that he's on mouse and keyboard going up against people using controllers with aim assist. But in reality, he just wasn't that good at the game. He was inexperienced. He barely plays Halo. And also, he was playing with Halo pros, going up against other highly skilled Halo players that have been playing Halo their whole fucking life. But I guess Summit just expected to hop on Halo and be able to keep up with these people. But yeah, he was crying about aim assist a whole lot. And I've always wondered, how did he even know how strong the aim assist was?
Maybe he, played Halo back in the day or tried out the controller. Somebody told him. I mean, word spreads like wildfire on the internet, dude. Like, obviously. And I don't watch Summit a whole lot, but I did see a few of his clips. And for the most part, most of his clips, I think had legitimate complaints in there. I don't know about his claim that controller players are able to fire faster. Maybe he's referring to the bullet magnetism in relation to the bloom effect on a DMR, and maybe that the controller has, more magnetism or is able to stay very much more centered on the head, where bloom doesn't impact their ability to hit shots as badly. I don't really know what he's talking about there. You're not able to literally fire faster on a controller. I don't know where people are getting that. But a lot of times I think he when I notice him getting upset in some of the clips that I've seen, it's in the very situations that we're kind of upset about. Like, we just cannot keep up in those situations, and his videos largely, I think, represent those same situations.
He never plugged in a controller and tried it. So how did he even know the aim assist was so strong? How did he know the controller aimed for you? It's as if he didn't know and he just used that as an excuse. There are so
He probably played against people that use controller, and he's like, damn, like, I can't believe you hit, probably said something like, damn, dude, I can't believe you hit every one of those shots. That's ridiculous. And they say, dude, on controller, the guy probably replies, dude, on controller, like, aim assist, like, it's easy. You sort of just, like, let the reticle glide to your, back and forth on your opponent for you. You just kind of sit back and make sure it stays on that red reticle, and you're good to go. And it's not very difficult. Like, you don't have to predict as much. And that's where he got the notion. That's what I assume, or where I assume he got the notion that the aim assist is a little bit too strong.
Many people like that. Like, a mouse and keyboard player might get into a gunfight with a controller player, and the mouse and keyboard player misses one shot, but the controller player hit all of his shots. I've seen it. The mouse and keyboard player, oh, it's the aim assist. If I had aim assist, I would have been able to hit that shot. If I was playing on controller, I would have definitely hit that shot. And hey, maybe that is true. Maybe that is true. Maybe you are better with a controller. But that could be because of various different reasons. Maybe you're just inexperienced with mouse and keyboard. Maybe you are experienced with mouse and keyboard.
I highly doubt Summit is inexperienced with mouse and keyboard. Like, to just say all these mouse and keyboard players are just bad with their aim compared to controller players, like, obviously that is not what's going on right now. That is not what's fucking going on right now. Like, God, like, how can you even say that? Like, dude, like, I know that you would never agree to this, but if controller players were to turn off their aim assist, like, they would be the ones not able to be able to keep up. Like, then it would be the complete opposite, right? Like, So how can you say these controller players have better aim when largely it's the aim assist that's responsible for them being able to aim the way they do, and the strength of that aim assist, and the aim assist compounded with the bullet magnetism the way it is, the way they are combined with one another, they compound and multiply. They're like force multipliers for each other. On their own, they may not be quite as strong. Aim assist is probably stronger on its own than bullet mag, but when, and bullet mag on its own probably would not be that strong without the aim assist, but when you combine them, it's like a marriage. It's a marriage made in heaven. Like it just so like enhances your ability to stay locked on your target. And even when your reticle is off, your bullets still curve to their head. Like, man, like, to say that the mouse and keyboard players just aren't as good at aiming as the controller players, when knowingly you have this massive advantage and knowing that it's overtuned, like, how can you even make that claim?
Keyboard, but you're just more comfortable on the controller. Or hey, maybe it is truly the aim assist. Maybe you're good on both, but you're better on the controller because of that extra aim assist. I'm sure that's the case for some people. But then what's to be said for the mouse and keyboard players who have god tier aim, who aim way better using a mouse than a controller? What's to be said about that? I guess some people might say, oh yeah, you can aim good on a mouse and keyboard, but it's harder to do. Well,
like I said, some people just don't play with controllers or haven't played with controllers, or they're not console gamers. They largely almost exclusively play on mouse and keyboard. So them hopping on a controller and having this completely foreign device in their hands, like it's a good chance, and then have to adjust their settings and figure out how they like it. Like when I plug in my controller on MCC PC, I know exactly how I want my fucking settings. I know what's comfortable for me, but for people that don't play on that device and don't play Halo on that device, like, they don't fucking know. So they're probably going to hop on and be very, very uncomfortable. It's not that they couldn't get there. They're just going to be, it's going to be a foreign experience for them. They're going to have to fine tune that shit and figure it out. It'll take some time, obviously. It's just a completely alien, situation compared to what they're used to.
how does that make any sense? Because if it's harder to aim on a mouse and keyboard, then how the fuck is it easier for some people? How do some people aim much better on mouse and keyboard than controller? How's that? But that's the thing, so much of this is just fucking preference. I'm not out here saying mouse and keyboard is objectively better than controller. I did say in a previous video that, if anything, mouse and keyboard has the advantage, but I didn't claim mouse and keyboard actually does have the advantage.
They each have advantages in their own situations. I've already addressed this. It's just that so many of the situations that controller has the advantage in tend to pop up more, much more. Like, controller has the advantage in many more engagements than the mouse has the advantage in. And that's sort of the imbalance right now. A large reason for the imbalance right now.
It's just preference. But a lot of the simple-minded people with the controller equals aimbot mentality, they say controller has this advantage over mouse and keyboard as if that's factual. They actually think controllers are objectively better, when in reality that's not true. A lot of this is all subjective. It's preference. Mouse and keyboard and controller.
I know this is almost impossible to measure, but take a person with the same degree of skill with both mouse and keyboard and controller, he will perform better in situations that the controller has the advantage in, which, like I said, is probably most of the engagements in precision Slayer modes and competitive modes. So if he has equal skill with mouse and keyboard and equal skill with controller, the extra assistance that the controller provides will allow him to perform better in most situations.
Controller, they both have their advantages and disadvantages. But people will tell you, oh, well, the advantage of aim assist, that outweighs all the advantages that mouse and keyboard have. But I call bullshit, because
Yes, that is bullshit. That is not in fact true. Mouse and keyboard does have situations where it is in the advantage. It's just that most of the time it's at the disadvantage, I would say.
We discussed, you could turn around so much faster on a mouse and keyboard. You know how nice that is? To be able to spin around on a fucking dime on a mouse and keyboard and still have all that fucking control with your goddamn entire hand? And another thing people need to remember is that this game, Halo, is not all about shooting. Shooting skill is like 10% of the game. There's so much more that goes into it. But again, people don't want to recognize that.
Dude, I hate this statement. I fucking hate that statement. Aiming, this is probably the main line that got made me want to make this video. Aiming is 10% of the fucking game. Dude, I can't even believe someone would say that. Like, I wonder if you regret saying that. Because, like, that is just so hilarious to me. Like, if aiming is only 10% of the game, then if you stripped aim assist from the controllers who have been playing Halo for 20 years and faced a relative newcomer to Halo with mouse and keyboard. Granted, the mouse and keyboard is experienced. The player would be experienced with mouse and keyboard, assuming he knows how to aim with a mouse and keyboard and he's competent with that device. If you pitted those two players against each other, no matter how good in precision modes, I'm not talking about necessarily. No, forget that. You know, in just normal Halo, I still think the mouse and keyboard player would win in that 1v1 because his aim would just overcome so many of the other assets that the controller player has. I think that would be the case. If a controller player, unless they're a virtual god, but if the controller player got stripped of aim assist and still had all of his Halo knowledge from those years, and a relative newcomer who's competent on mouse and keyboard came and played him, I think the mouse and keyboard player may be able to beat him. It may be close. It may be close, you know, because of power weapons and all that nonsense. But in those precision modes, or precision gunfights, that controller player, no amount of map knowledge and shit and maneuverability, I think will allow him to compete. He's going to be so far outside his comfort zone, I think he would lose confidence in his ability to go toe to toe with the mouse and keyboard player in somewhat even situations. I think he would lose confidence and he would start to make bad plays and retreat in situations he never would otherwise. And that's sort of the thing mouse and keyboard players have been dealing with right now. I've noticed that when I'm in a lobby and most of my opponents are on controller, and I can usually tell, most of the time I'll ask, but if they confirm they're on controller, I'll notice, like, a lot of times I'll lose confidence in my ability to go head to head, and I can only come out and, you know, play my game to the extent that I have an advantage in against them. Like, they're already weakened or they're down to one shot. Like, I've sort of I'm playing in a way that I would never normally play Halo because I don't have the confidence that I can go toe to toe with these guys in many of these situations, and it sucks. Man, the other day I played a game of Halo where all of my opponents and most of my teammates said they were on mouse and keyboard, and the one or two guys that didn't say anything, I think they were on mouse and keyboard too, but they didn't perform all that well either way, so it didn't really end up mattering. And man, that game was so good. Like, it brought aiming skill into Halo. Like, oh man, it just played out so good. Like, I know there's Halo purists that expect Halo to sort of play out in a certain type of way, but when you introduce that aiming skill gap to Halo, it plays out so beautifully. It's such a good game when it was mouse on keyboard on mouse and keyboard. Like, dude, it was so much fun. It was probably the best game of Halo I had played since the game came out. Um, like, day one, I did have some games where it was all mouse and keyboard players, and I could definitely tell, and that was a dream as well. But over time, I noticed the controller just slowly took over the community. But I did manage to get in against opponents that were exclusively mouse and keyboard users, and it seemed like my teammates were as well. And it was such a good game, dude. So good. And that's what I want. That's why I'm in favor of input based matchmaking, because that was a fucking phenomenal experience.
The simple-minded motherfuckers. Aim assist equal aimbot. Success in Halo does not come solely from how accurate you are. That's only like 10% of it. There's so many more other elements to the game. Knowledge of spawns.
That is true. However, if you fail to line up shots with a precision weapon at close to medium range, your other knowledge and skills will get diminished. Your aim, is in a way sort of a force multiplier. If you have all these other skills and with good aim on top of it, then you're going to be a beast. But if you have all these other skills and knowledge, but your aim is just not great, then it's going to weaken your other, those skills that you've cultivated. It's not going to, you're not going to appear that great, if that makes any sense. So no matter how much skill you have in other aspects of the game, if you fail to line up a lot of your shots with some of these weapons, it's not going to matter much that you are so good at those other aspects.
Timing power weapons and power-ups. Predicting player movement, how you move around the map yourself, knowing good grenade placement, strafing, player awareness, knowing certain skill jumps on the map, and several other things as well. But people are so focused on the aiming aspect of the game. And when it comes to some people, every time they miss a shot on their mouse and keyboard, they blame it on the fact that they're not using a controller with aim assist. And sure, some people do play better with controller. That shot that they missed using mouse and keyboard, they may have hit that shot using a controller. But that just means you're better with a controller for whatever reason that may be. That doesn't mean it has this overall advantage.
There are obvious situations in the game where if I miss with a, mouse, I will think to myself, like, I would have hit that shot with a controller. Not all. But like it's usually like the strafing back and forth, change of direction style gunfights where it's sort of that's when I sort of feel that way. Like this is so much harder to execute on a mouse than it would be on a controller. And had I been on controller, I probably would have won that particular gunfight or gotten that kill much sooner. Wouldn't have missed so many shots. Not every time. Like people sprinting full speed in Halo Reach, right by you. That's, reasonably difficult on both, I think, at, close range sprinting and stuff. Like, that takes a reasonable amount of skill to hit on both. And there's no guarantee that if somebody did that and I was using a controller, I would have gotten that kill. And I don't blame using a mouse the reason why I, missed that kill. But I do sort of see situations when I play mouse and keyboard where I'm like, man, if I was just using a controller there, that would have been one of my kills. Not all, but there are definitely times where that does come up. And those that claim every one of the kills they fuck up with mouse and keyboard would have been gotten if they were using a controller, well, those are the same people that probably blame lag or the fact that their dog was barking for the why, they get killed or lose games.
Aiming to aim assist for why you suck dick at the game is really so fucking pathetic. People really need to stop blaming aim assist for why they suck and actually work on improving at the game. Sure, I get it. Some people play better with a controller. Some people play better with a mouse and keyboard. But that doesn't mean one is objectively better than the other. And some people try to defend the idea that controller is overpowered by pointing out the fact that most of the highly skilled Halo players use controller, not mouse and keyboard. But let's think about this logically for a couple seconds. Just a couple seconds. I promise it won't hurt you. So, why is it that most of the highly skilled Halo players and pros use a controller? Yeah, I'm gonna go take a piss. I'm gonna think about this.
TikTok, motherfucker. Did my beer grow, or am I tripping?
Okay, I think I got it. I got something. Just hear me out. Hear me out.
We waiting.
Maybe it might be because Halo has primarily been a console game for damn near 20 fucking years, that people have been playing with a controller for their entire fucking life. Maybe, just an idea. Fuck, man, the comprehension skills of some of these people are lacking. Of course, most of the skilled Halo players are gonna be on a fucking controller.
Man, you know what? Shit, that looked like fun. I'm gonna let you marinate on my answer, or my response to this line that he brought into play here. I'm gonna let you marinate, and in the meantime, I'm gonna go around and flex and do my thing. So you think about what I just said. It's not a problem to you that like I don't know the landscape of Halo competitive gaming, bro. Like I'm not even gonna claim I don't care about watching esports that much usually, but like it's not an issue to you that like mouse and keyboard has basically been decidedly put into this category that's unviable. Like who's competitive? Like I would really love to know who's playing competitive on mouse and keyboard. Is there anybody? Like how many? Like it's not a problem to you that like none of these guys are like switching over, like that played on controller, like none of them find mouse and keyboard a viable solution when in so many other games it actually is? Like that right there is evidence that the aim assist right now is, dude, like I just I and your response was so smug and gatekeepery, like just I don't know, dude. Like I don't know. To me it's kind of weird that like just all the mouse and keyboard players that are normally good at games just instantly drop out. Like they have no desire to even compete with controller players. Like that's sort of an issue to me. Is that does not seem like a red flag to you or to others that, are pro controller, like the fact that mouse and keyboard players are largely just saying, this game it's just not working out. It's the way this has been brought to PC, it just is not good for us. We'll just move on to other games. Like that is painful. And for somebody whose name is Bring Halo Back, like that should be a problem for you. Like, oh my god. and to go through all the fucking theatrics, like what is that, dude? Like, I mean, I know I did as well, but I had to. I just had to illustrate. I had to.
Because they've been using a controller to play Halo their entire fucking life. But some of these inexperienced mouse and keyboard players just expect to hop on the game and keep up with these top Halo players. I'm so tired of seeing.
What about the guys that have played controller, largely, their entire life on Halo and play other games on PC with mouse and keyboard and expected many of their mouse and keyboard skills to translate to their Halo skills, and they'd be able to recreate their performance on mouse and keyboard. But that has not been true because controllers can still outduel them. Like, I don't know, dude. I just need to get through the rest of this video. I think most of my points have been made, but just in case, something else needs to be said, we'll just keep on moving.
Seeing this argument that controllers have this overall advantage. I mean, I'm tired of seeing it, but then again, it makes me giggle. It's funny. It's funny sometimes. you know what's really funny? the people who think you get bullet magnetism with a controller, but you don't get it on mouse and keyboard.
You do get bullet mag on mouse and keyboard, but because it's not compounded with the aim assist, like I said, they multiply each other's effectiveness. If controllers had bullet magnetism with no aim assist, like, bullet magnetism wouldn't be shit. It wouldn't make a fucking shit of difference. So that's what mouse and keyboard players are largely dealing with. They have the bullet magnetism, but they don't have aim assist to compound that, advantage. And it's harder to line up shots in a lot of the situations we're talking about. So yeah, it does have bullet mag. I will agree to that, but it's just not the same. It's in practice, the bullet magnetism on mouse and keyboard, it just doesn't add up to nearly the same advantage that aim assist and bullet magnetism provides on a controller.
Oh man, believe it or not, those people exist. They actually think the bullet magnetism is different depending on whether you play with a mouse and keyboard or a controller. Holy shit. But yeah, that's gonna just about do it for my third video about this now. I mean, I don't have to talk about it, but I just want to, because I think it's funny how this argument is still going on. People think controller's overpowered. It's an aimbot. It aims for you. But these people fail to use logic in their assessment of the situation. Simple-minded. Controller aim assist.
Some of the examples of certain people you brought up are obviously simple-minded, and they're not representative of the real side of the argument, the side of the argument that I'm bringing up right now. There are people out there using logic in regards to this issue. It's just that you've cherry-picked some of the people that don't.
Assist. Mouse and keyboard, no aim assist. Controller OP. Fucking brain dead. And one more thing. I always see people say, oh, take away the aim assist from the controller, and these controller players are nothing. They'd get destroyed. Well, that might be true. That might be true. But again, as we already discussed, thumb versus the hand. This thing should get aim assist. This doesn't fucking need it. But you know what I would love to see?
So if you took away aim assist from a controller, that would a large, I would say a significant majority of controller players on Halo PC would just have to switch over to mouse and keyboard, and that would be the ideal scenario. But it would basically leave, controller only players behind. They would not be able to compete. And in order to compete right now, they have an artificial assistance that is exceptionally strong, way stronger than it rightfully needs to be on a game that can be played at 144 plus, frames per second. It's just too much, way, way too much. And the only true solution is not to change it, but to segregate the players. And the only way that you'll truly make a person like me happy is to just not match me with them. I don't want that to even be an equation. The only solution for me that would make me happy is get rid of aim assist altogether, it's not going to happen. There would be an outcry if it did happen, and I don't actually want that to happen. I want people to generally play Halo like they always have. or segregate the player base so that I don't have to play against those players anymore. And I think that would be the most beneficial. Controller players can play against controller players, and mouse and keyboard can play against mouse and keyboard, and everybody's happy. And I actually think it might be very healthy for the Halo PC version, the MCC PC version, if they did that. I think it'll actually enhance its growth if they did that. Like, call me crazy, call me a optimist. I'm sort of feeling like, because of the strength of the Halo brand, and it's not as strong as it once was, but because of the strength of the Halo brand, it would bring players back if they said, "Hey, you're not going to have to play against aim assist players anymore. Like, you'll be able to come back with your mouse and keyboard and play against players exclusively using that input method." I think players, because of the nostalgia and the power of the Halo brand, they would actually come back. I'd like to believe they aren't just gone forever. And I think it would actually be healthy for the Halo community. And the console version, once crossplay is introduced, would actually get an influx of new players from the PC controller base. So that would make that community healthier, and it would make hopefully the mouse and keyboard community healthier as well.
I would love to see these mouse and keyboard players with aim assist. I want to see that. Give the mouse and keyboard players aim assist. That's really what I want to see. Because I guarantee you, it won't change much. Controllers should have aim assist. Mouse and keyboard doesn't need it, but hey, give it to them anyway.
He's actually right. I've already mentioned this, but he is actually correct. I'm not sure that it wouldn't change much per se, but it would just totally fuck up mouse and keyboard muscle memory. You just can't do it. You cannot do it. It would totally fuck you up. You would not be able to move. I know it's hilarious because when I emulated it, what I found is it's so funny is that when you wanted to move off of a target, it was fucking hard. Like, you were just stuck on him. It illustrates how goddamn strong it is, but at the same time, like, it's a disadvantage when you're just glued to somebody and you're just like, you're moving your mouse like, fuck, like, get me off of this dude. Like, that's how crazy it is. Like, it's insane. And he is right that it wouldn't work, but I don't think it's for the reasons he thinks it wouldn't work. Like, it would definitely make our aim in fucking sane, but I don't want that to be the case. I want there to be an aim skill gap. I think that would be the worst possible solution ever, for more than one reason.
For the most part, the same players would be destroying the same players. Not much would change, because success in Halo is determined by much more than just aiming skill. Like, honestly, if you put a highly skilled Halo player in a 1v1 against a average Halo player with an aimbot. So an average Halo player who has an aimbot, he has 100% accuracy. Not wall hacks, just 100% accuracy, doesn't miss a shot, and he's going up against a highly skilled Halo player. There is a much better chance that the skilled Halo player would come out on top. Why? Because this game is not all about aiming skill. You can destroy players who don't miss a shot.
Okay, that's an interesting point. I think the player with an aimbot wouldn't really be at that much of an advantage because a skilled Halo player on a controller largely doesn't miss shots anyway. I'm not going to call aim assist an aimbot because I don't really know entirely how aimbots worked. I've never used one nor watched a video of somebody definitively showing how it functioned and the different settings and levels of aimbottery you can do. But he might not be incorrect in this statement, but comparing an experienced Halo player to a complete and total Halo noob with aimbot is kind of a weird thing to bring up. You should say a middle of the pack Halo player, an average Halo player, a player that, you know, has some familiarity with Halo versus a really skilled Halo player, but the lesser skilled one, but still knowledgeable about the game, still knows what Halo fucking is, was given a 100%, accuracy aimbot. I would think that the 100% accuracy player could find some situations where he was advantaged and win in, and maybe try to stick to those situations where he, just like at range, just like, here's cover, and he's just like poking his head out and just like hitting crazy, accurate shots. I think a skilled Halo player might have difficulties with that. Of course, I think the skilled player would counter adjust and try to find ways where he's not challenged by that strategy. He would try to find ways around it. But the skilled Halo player himself probably wouldn't be missing many shots in the open field anyway, because of the way aim assist is functioning right now. So I think it's a little bit of a weird argument because of the way aim assist works right now. Anybody with a relative amount of skill right now on controller isn't missing too many shots in the kind of situations we're discussing.
Players beat players who have better aim all the time. It's time people wake the fuck up and realize they're just not good at the game. Some people. Blaming controller players and aim assist for why you're playing poorly is like blaming lag when the game's not even lagging. Or maybe one guy stuttered around the map for a second and you blame the entire game on lag. It's like that. It's fucking pathetic. Halo is its own beast. There's not a lot of other games like it. There's a lot of tracking involved in Halo. This is another thing I feel people don't really comprehend. This isn't your low TTK, one tap to the head twitch shooter. There's a lot of tracking involved in Halo. And
okay, that's another one of his points that I sort of forgot about that made me, want to make this video. And I already sort of discussed Unreal Tournament or Quake. But imagine Unreal Tournament 2K4 with the level of aim assist on controllers that Halo has. Like, those controller players would be able to beam rifle and bullet mag. You have to have both when you're discussing Halo. So imagine the controller player's ability to beam rifle motherfuckers. Like, not all weapons would be super effective instantly, and because they had the aim assist and bullet magnetism from Halo. But like, imagine certain situations with certain guns. Like, I would not relish the idea of facing that controller player with his beam rifle, because he would be nailing shit. Like, he would be like that guy in the lobby that just fucking destroys with the railgun or beam rifle. And that would be sort of like the average controller player. That wouldn't be representative of just the absolute top tier. That would be representative of most players that play Halo to this day with a, controller. Like, that player would go to Unreal Tournament and just dominate in certain situations with certain weapons. And that would make that game fucking suck, dude. Like, imagine hitting those shots with a railgun in Quake with the level of aim assist and bullet mag that Halo has. Like there would be a lot of situations and movement abilities that the controller player might struggle with compared to the mouse and keyboard player, but to be that good with the railgun would be shitty. Like, it would just sort of ruin it for mouse and keyboard players, where they have this high skill, precision weapon that, it takes a lot of fucking skill, and it's sort of a flex when you're able to hit all these railgun shots and these difficult shots. But with a controller player, with these level of aim assist and bullet mag, if they hit it, it's unimpressive. It would kind of just like cheapen it. And that's the whole thing. It cheapens what the mouse and keyboard players are saying is, like, a lot of these duels feel cheapened because of the existence of the aim assist and the strength to what it's at. It sort of cheapens the experience we were looking for when we bought MCC on PC.
Some of these mouse and keyboard players are realizing they're just not that good at tracking. Well, actually, they're not realizing it. They're just blaming aim assist. Yeah, there's some PC games that involve tracking. Like in Quake, certain weapons you have to track with, like the lightning gun. And with something like the lightning gun in Quake, you're outputting this constant stream of damage. Alright? It's just constantly shooting, and you just gotta focus on keeping that...
He uses the example of the lightning gun, where I think the railgun, and I believe it's called the beam rifle in Unreal Tournament. I haven't played that game in a long time. Hasn't been super relevant in a while. But he uses the lightning guns as examples, as other PC games where tracking is required. When I think a more accurate comparison would be those precision weapons like the railgun and beam rifle, because they're more similar to the battle rifle and DMR than the lightning gun are. And if you ever played Unreal Tournament and Quake, tracking players with a gun like the lightning gun, or even hitting beam rifle shots or railgun shots, that's a skill, man. Like players that really nail those shots, like and can take people out with the lightning gun and beam rifles consistently, like that is a fucking skill, and like major props to them. You're fucking amazing at the game. Or at least amazing with your accuracy, and that on its own is an impressive trait, even if you're not that great at other areas of the game. Like, you could still probably upload some clips that are like, fucking right, dude, you're a beast, right? Um, but if you introduced a controller player with aim assist and bullet mag to that situation, like, it's just like, fuck, like, none of my clips are really that impressive anymore. No one gives a fuck how hard this is to do on control or mouse anymore, because all these controller players just came in and fucking just nailing them without, with very little effort. So it's a weird example for you to bring up Quake and Unreal Tournament as your shining examples, like in favor of your argument, when I think that those games are actually not in favor of your argument. Like, just imagine a world where controller players with bullet mag and aim assist were playing Quake and Unreal Tournament, and how that would cheapen some of the high skill weapons and situations in those games. It would fucking suck, and those games, it would feel cheapened as a result, like I already said.
Keeping the reticle on the player. But with a lot of the weapons in Halo, it's not like you're outputting this constant stream of damage, as it would be if you were using the Sentinel beam or something like that. But with the Magnum, DMR, the battle rifle, a lot of the starting weapons, not only do you have to track and keep that reticle on the enemy player, but you got to make sure you're shooting at the correct time. It's not like you just hold down whatever your shoot button is and just focus on keeping the reticle steady on the enemy player. Nah, you gotta...
It's funny you bring that up, because that's very much like the railgun and beam rifle, right?
Make sure the reticle's on them and you're shooting at the correct time. You don't want to shoot when they strafe outside of your reticle. But what I'm trying to say is Halo is its own game. It's its own beast. It's a different game. Just because you were really good at your Counter-Strike or Unreal Tournament or Quake or whatever it may be, that doesn't mean you're going to be good at Halo. So that's going to be it for this, guys. I'll end this just like I ended my...
But if you're really good with your aim in Quake or Unreal Tournament, specifically with the beam gun or the railgun, or possibly even the lightning gun as well, the example that you used, like, that should mean that you're able to pretty well dominate with your aim with DMR and BRs, shouldn't it? Like, aren't Quake and Unreal Tournament somewhat harder to aim with precision weapons than Halo? Like, that should mean your aim should very well carry over to Halo, right? And that you shouldn't be just getting out-dueled by controller players the way that you might be. I don't know. I mean, I think you see where I'm going with this, but I already sort of explained it, so I'm probably not going to explain it again. The video's almost over, so let's just move it along.
My first aim assist video. It's not the aim assist. You're just not that good.
He talks about oversimplifying the fucking problem and how these simple-minded players, just like to find something to blame. That is oversimplifying the fucking problem. That last statement he just made there. He's made several other videos on the topic, at least 2 others, I believe, maybe more. I didn't go completely through his history. But he's discussed this topic a great deal. This is probably one of the more outrageous and egregious ones. He has made a response video to someone else who kind of responded to this video, I believe. I don't think he'll necessarily respond to this one, because I'm not I'm not really a YouTuber or whatever, but I wanted to get another person's perspective on this, like an average Joe Schmo, like on mouse and keyboard. Like, there is value to our arguments here. And there's so many controller players out there that are just saying get good. And like, God, you don't get it. And this guy, Bring Halo Back, he himself admitted he does not play on mouse and keyboard because he sucks on it. He's not as good on it. Well, go fucking figure, right? It's hard. Like, there's an aiming skill gap in many of the situations on mouse and keyboard in Halo that make it quite a bit harder. You know, like funny how can you say I'm not as good on mouse and keyboard and then say aim is only 10% of the game? Like oh my god. Like that right there is just a red flag. But anyway, I should shut this video down, move it along cuz it long as hell. Anyway, I think you get my point, and I think I said most of what I needed to say. There's probably some stuff I could have said that I left out because this is a sort of a complicated issue that has many factors to it. However, I can't make this video any longer than I already have, and I'm not probably going to respond to some of the other videos he's done on the topic in the past because that's just way too much at this point. I would have to get a shitload of fan feedback, or like as if I have fans, but viewer feedback that desired me to do that in order to even attempt something like that. So anyway, take care, man, and maybe I'll see you next time whenever I decide I feel like making a video. Yeah, that's how it is, homie. So take care, man. Peace out.